Hey all, Hipper here. So today we are looking at the Tier 8 Brindisi, which is a new heavy Italian cruiser, and I'm gonna tell you in this video if it's a good agile cruiser or not. And as you can probably tell from this beginning here, I'm leaning towards not. I mean, let's be honest here, this is no Napoli. It's very, very squishy, and I actually think that it feels as squishy as a Minotaur, which, you know, is pretty squishy. So when you have such a squishy ship, you are kind of, you know, expecting something in return. Like with Minotaur, where you get radar, a bunch of torpedoes, sonar, and fast-firing, excellent guns. With Brindisi, you kind of get nothing. It's an Amalfi with an extra turret, really, and it totally lacks any sort of utility. There's no radar, there's not even a sonar on the ship, and for an agile playstyle, it's pretty much useless. So with my build, it actually goes 42 knots, and the rudder shift is 2 seconds, and as you can see, it's really agile. But I mean, agility or rudder and speed, it really isn't everything, because like I said, you have no utility in the ship here, and it's very good at getting into a position because, you know, it's fast and it's agile. Like the concealment is 11.1 without any concealment modifications at all, so that's pretty decent. So it's not hard to get into good spots on the map. The problem is that what are you going to do when you get there? Because, I mean, that's the whole point of getting your cruiser into a good position if you play agile cruisers. Get a Minotaur into this position here, for example, which I'm doing now. You'll be able to control the C and the B caps for a very long time. But in Brindisi here, you get into the position, and yes, you're fast, so you get into the cap before the destroyers, and you're able to, you know, push them out. But really, the usefulness of having a Brindisi in this position here is pretty much zero, I would say. I mean, what are you gonna do? The smoke does come in handy sometimes, though. For example, in this situation here, where we have a Des Moines behind us that has a radar. So I'm going to ask him, hey, pop your radar, because there's a destroyer in the cap, and I'll pop out and kick him out of here. So I'm just going to wait for the radar to kick in here, the 5 seconds, the new thing. It takes a long time to get used to, really. And this way I can send the destroyer flying, and because I don't have a radar, the Des Moines does have one. And this way we're working together here, but you can't pull this off by yourself. And then when things start to get a little bit too hot in here, we take a torpedo as well. That was like unnecessary. When things start to get a little hot, you pop your smoke, and off you go. And you know, it's a fun way of getting a cap like right under the nose of the whole red team. And you know, the same thing I do in Amalfi and Gorizia and all that stuff, but that's really the only thing you can do in a Brindisi, and it sometimes requires, you know, like brain activity with your team. Like this Des Moines here, he did exactly what I was hoping he would do, and that worked out well. But you know, most people don't have the ability to grasp, you know, very fancy maneuvers like this one here, where you actually try to take a cap. Most people are completely oblivious and don't realize, and it makes Brindisi even worse to play, really. Of course, the smoke is also good for ambushes, but on the other hand, you don't have the acceleration of Minotaur. Again, I'm comparing to Minotaur or Neptune for that matter at the same tier, and it just it makes it very unsuitable to do this. See, the smoke runs out before I actually get the ship out, and yeah, that's the thing I have about all the Italian cruisers. Like, the smoke doesn't last long enough. You can't pull off anything interesting, really. And again, if you have to brawl a battleship in Brindisi, you only have 4 torpedoes per side, and it isn't enough. It's not a Minotaur or Neptune package there that will allow you to totally death strike a battleship and sink it in one go. Even when you try, and even when you get all 4 hits, I get 3 hits in this instance here, the battleship usually survives, or actually always survives, and they will always have the last laugh in a 1 versus 1 situation like this. So what's the point? Well, I'll tell you, there is no point. I mean, if you want to play agile cruisers, this is not the pick. Go with Neptune at the same tier, or go with the Minotaur, or go up a tier, or pick pretty much any other ship, really. Another thing I've noticed on Brindisi is that the smoke seems to kick in later than the other Italians. So here it's been on for about 3 seconds, and I'm still spotted. And of course that costs me my precious ship here, but I'm like, is that really how it is on Amalfi? I don't remember that, but I could be wrong. So, of course there are, good things, and the Zap shells are excellent. You can one-shot destroyers with them very easily, but the problem is, as usual, is to actually, find those destroyers, because you don't have sonar, you don't have radar, and it is a real problem. But, once you do find them, they are just sitting ducks. But you do have an 18-second reload on Brindisi, and again, I mean, comparing it to Neptune or Minotaur, Neptune has a third of that reload, and you can dev strike destroyers just as easily. Minotaur is even faster, and yeah, I mean, there's just not much of a case for this ship here. And sometimes you get totally punished with these Zap shells here. Like, for example, here we get 10 shatters because we happen to hit, some nasty armor there. So it's inconsistent, I think. But good thing about Zap shells, as opposed to Minotaur's AP, it's not as easy to bounce off destroyers running away. So in situations like this, you can actually, remove them. In a Minotaur, that would have probably ricocheted off. So that brings us to the last thing I want to touch here, and that is, the lack of sonar. Like, let's be honest here, a cruiser without sonar is a huge handicap. Like, I still have problems understanding what is a cruiser without sonar supposed to do. What is its purpose? Is it doing damage? Okay, but every ship is supposed to do damage. So yeah, I still don't get it, and that's why I pretty much only play the Gorizia with the German cruisers, because it has a sonar. And with my playstyle, you cannot survive without a sonar, so don't even try. So what's good about Brindisi? Well, like pretty much all the Italian cruisers here, it's fast. You can get to the cap quickly, and once you get spotted, if you don't want to, engage yet, you can just use your rolling smoke to, for example, like in this instance here, get that last few 100 meters into a nice spot. But then, as you'll see here, the problem presents itself, because what are you going to do then? Because the cap, someone else is contesting the cap, and you don't have the tools to take them on. So in conclusion, Brindisi is a pretty poor agile cruiser, and I would play it this way. I would go with a more traditional build, and you'll do much better with it. And that's a shame, but hope you enjoyed it, and see you out there.